Hey guys, I'm Super Joe, and I wanted to bring you a quick, no nonsense job guide to taking on the post game content of Bravely Default 2, the portals and the bosses within them. Now, because of the nature of this guide, a lot of my builds will be unoptimized, and that's because I won't have access to the later abilities or the weapons that any of the bosses drop. Now, the first job I wanted to look at is Shield Master. And Shield Master is actually a pretty broken class, and the reason it's broken is because Protect Ally works in an AoE situation. So ideally, what we want is for 3 members of our party to always be in critical health, and to have our Shield Master tank literally everything. That's the plan. That's the dream. And to do that, we are going to take Bastion as our sub-job for Default Guard, so that when he's defaulting, he takes even less damage. And we make sure we get that with Subjob Specialty 1. Then we're going to take Dual Shields, so that we have 2 shields. We have 1 shield in each hand. That's more physical reduction, that's more magic defense, that's more elemental resistances. We take No Guts, No Glory, so that as we gain BP, we also gain more defense. Then we reinforce that with BP limit up. Lastly, we take Unshakable Will, and Unshakable Will is really important because the only time Protect Ally will not proc is when your Shield Master is incapacitated somehow, either through sleep, paralysis, confusing, charm, freezing. The only thing this doesn't prevent is stop. So for some fights, you may need to equip the Sands of Time charm. So now that we have our tank out of the way, we can focus on our physical DPS. And until you have access to later skills in the game and later weapons, the most physical damage you're going to be getting is out of Phantom Thief. And the reason we take Thief is because Thief has access to Godspeed Strike. Godspeed Strike is a very strong physical attack that scales off of your speed as well, and it hits twice, making it one of the most powerful tools in your disposal. We're going to pick Phantom as our main job, because of the specialties. Achilles Heel and Results Guaranteed. Achilles Heel means that when you exploit an enemy weakness, you have a chance of inflicting a crit, and then Results Guaranteed means when you have a chance of doing something, you spend 40 MP and you guarantee that it triggers. And that's so strong because we also take Crit Flow for our passive abilities. And this way, every time we crit, we spend another 40 MP to gain another BP. And this lets us churn out a lot more damage a lot more consistently. And instead of spending 3 attacks 1 turn every 6 turns, we get to Brave 4 times every single turn. And that's so many Godspeed Strikes, and that's so much more damage. To increase that damage, we take Crit Amp, we take Raw Power since we're going to be using a lot of Brave. We take Bloody Minded to ensure that all of our attacks hit. We don't really mind the HP reduction because the Shield Master is going to be tanking everything anyway. And then you take Surpassing Power because your Godspeed Strikes will be hitting over 10,000 damage. And it's important to note that largely your equipment doesn't really matter with these job loadouts. With the exception of Phantom. When you're taking on the bosses on the portal, they are all going to be humanoid, which means the Ripper is an incredible weapon. Using the Ripper, you can bypass weapon resistances. So if you have, say Marla, the Phantom boss, who half damages daggers, if you have the Ripper, she instead still gets crit by your attacks because she's a humanoid and she's vulnerable to this dagger. For magic, we don't really have a lot at our disposal. Until you have access to later abilities and later weapons, getting your magic attack high is kind of hard. And I think having a freelancer as your main job with all of your jobs maxed is the best way to do it. Unfortunately, that doesn't really leave a lot of choices for what kind of magic you want to bring. I'd normally choose a red mage if I had to, just because Chain Spell is too good to ignore. Being able to cast twice, that gives you 8 spells in a turn. And that's a lot of spells. We take Sub-Specialty 2 to make sure that we get Chain Spell, Magic Amp for the damage, Magic Crit, because one of those 8 is going to crit. Crit Amp so that when they do crit, it deals more damage, and then Surpassing Power because when they do crit, they're going to be dealing more than 10,000 damage as well. Finally, I like to bring a support. And my support of choice is Brave Bearer Bard. And Brave Bearer Bard is, in and of itself, enough to completely break the game. And the reason why is because Brave Bearer gets access to True Grit, which means that at the start of every turn, you gain 2 BP. And Bard, at level 12, gains access to Shut Up and Dance, which means that you can cause a target to act immediately after your turn, including yourself. So what you can do as a Brave Bearer Bard is you start your turn, you use 1 Brave to do literally anything. You can buff, you can use an item, you can use an ether to get your mana back up, and then you can use Shut Up and Dance so that you act immediately after that, and then you get another 2 turns. To make sure that that's as strong as it sounds, you're going to want to take Spearhead. And Spearhead is a Beastmaster ability that lets you act first whenever you have a spear equipped. And once the battle starts, you can take that spear, you can replace it with anything, you can keep it equipped, it doesn't matter, as long as you act first. That's what's important. Your abilities that you take with this buff doesn't really matter. I like to take Born Entertainer and Peace Saver full force. Lastly, I take Healing Item Amp. And the reason I take Healing Item Amp is because the shield Blessing uses Cura, and it acts as an item, which means that it's buffed through that ability, Healing Item Amp. And that's it. Those are 4 jobs, a well-rounded party to get you off on the right foot to taking on the portals and the bosses and unlocking jobs and farming new weapons and eventually getting you ready for the super boss. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Take care. Good luck.